Okay, everyone, welcome back to another lecture. Okay, today we're going to be talking about cultural impact of globalization, arguably the easiest of the all three impacts of globalization. Okay, so let's get this over and done with. Okay, so the first things first, we need to understand how globalization actually does impact culture in the first place. Okay, and what are the types of culture that we're looking at? First type is our traditional form of culture that we understand, which is ethnic culture. Okay, and if you remember what we discussed in diversity topic, right, we are talking about belief, values, and practices that shape the behavior, interaction, and way of life of people within this ethnicity. Okay, so essentially, whatever ethnicity you belong to, okay, essentially is what your culture actually reflects upon lah. Okay, so all the practices, the customs, the traditions that you have. Okay, and again, that is where the identity and cohesion comes from. Important thing to note for this topic, there is no such thing as a pure culture. Okay, yes, there have been cases where a very specific group in this specific territory have this sort of things that they do, right? But over the course of history, they have always been influenced by everything else that they have come in contact with, be it other people or other civilizations or even works of literature and art from any other civilization. So the idea of a pure culture simply does not exist. Okay, and you must understand that culture evolves. It takes place gradually, but it does evolve. So the way of life may be adapted, okay, to very different circumstances in the future, and there will be groups of people who will try to preserve what was originally there, okay, in and seeing this adaptation as something negative. Okay, the second type of culture we're looking at is also popular and consumer culture. Okay, essentially this is when behaviors and preferences are shaped by the wider economy and the wider advertising world. Okay, so consuming, we're talking about consuming goods and services lah. Okay, we are also talking about our influence from social media, from film, from TVs and stuff like that. Okay, it shapes the way that we view the world, and it definitely changed the way that we live, right? So it can be mainly related to money, how much we spend, what we spend on, but at the same time, it can also influence the way that we perceive ourselves and the wider society around us. Okay, so you must understand that with technology, with transport, with MNCs, there have been a greater spread of both ethnic culture and also consumer and popular culture across the world. So people's cultures seemingly are getting similar day by day. Okay, and so the first case study we'll look at for spread of culture is actually Americanization. Okay, and this is one of the more OG kind of spreads of cultures examples. Okay, because American culture is now becoming very, very relatable and very, very accessible across the world. Okay, so people probably consume American media like your Netflix shows lah, your dramas, all these things like I don't know if people still watch Grey's Anatomy or what. That was my time. Okay, okay, but nonetheless, okay, they are adopting the values and beliefs, okay, represented in these shows. And of course, because we consume this media so much, whatever is portrayed, whatever is the value and identity portrayed in these films and movies and shows, right, slowly they become a part of us as well. Remember I said culture evolves, and it evolves with what we come into contact with. So more we come into contact with American culture, the more our own way of life starts to become similar to the Americans. Okay, and Hollywood is a very good example of this. So in the past, okay, a lot of countries, especially in the Asian sphere, tended to censor American films simply because they are portraying values, okay, things that us in Asia may not necessarily believe at that point in time. But at the same time, it's done good things, like for example, um, American women's freedom, okay, and the freedom to choose, the freedom to be who they want to be in American films. And when Asian women saw that, they actually started to realize, hey, there's more to it than being restricted by conservative norms, and so they started to fight for their rights. Okay, so it can go both ways. Like always, we talk about globalization as a double-edged sword. The second and more recent case study is about Korea. Okay, South Korea and their Korean wave, also known as Hallyu. Okay, so we're talking about essentially since the 2000s. Okay, you have your K dramas, your K-pop, and of course your electronic and makeup. Okay, everything is from Korea, seemingly that at that point in time. Okay, so this shows that it's not just Western cultures; it is also possible that the Asian culture becomes something that spreads around the world. Okay, so what is our conclusion from these two case studies? We realize, okay, that US and Korea share something in common. They are more technologically and infrastructurally developed. Okay, so they are often using, okay, their technological advancement to spread their entertainment, their value, and their way of life in the digital form. Okay, through their films, through their music and whatnot. Okay, they are almost sending it to the rest of the world in this digital form, so that anybody at any time across anywhere in the world can access and grow accustomed to it. Okay, that is how that spread actually occurs in the modern day. And you can see this by, for example, Netflix's reach across the world. You realize that Netflix is available in basically almost every single country except for those that are not on particularly good terms with the US, right? And so then we also see that MNCs play a role here in the way that they play to spreading popular and consumer culture. So when MNCs try to engage celebrities to advertise their products on TikTok lah or on their movies or something like that, they are essentially jumping on the bandwagon of these films and music already being distributed to the whole world. Then they put in their advertisement there, and subconsciously or even consciously, they start to build this impression onto you that you need this thing, you need this thing, you need this thing. That's the whole point of advertising, right? So that actually becomes a point where consumer culture becomes increasingly prevalent, okay, for people from all over the world. Okay, so spread can enrich people's life. They can introduce them to new choices, new lifestyles. But okay, you must understand, the more this happens, the more we can become similar. We eat the same things, we listen to the same music, we wear the same thing. We can better relate to one another. But remember, there is always a group of people that will argue, is that really a good thing or not? That's where we talk about dilution of culture. When these type of what we call hegemonic cultures, okay, stronger cultures, when they spread across the world in such a popular, in such a fast-paced manner, local cultures that are specifically located and unique to this particular location and this particular group start to become diluted. Why? Because the other culture is so strong. It is so overwhelmingly strong that people start to look away from what their original culture was or what their own traditions say. Okay, more people get immersed in this global culture that they have. Your own local culture and traditions start to become less widespread. Okay, and so over time, in many countries, we see a trend of the stronger hegemonic cultures, okay, starting to replace these local cultures entirely. Okay, so people argue that that has led to people's original traditions losing the original meanings that they had. Okay, younger generations feeling more rooted to the wider world than to their communities that they grew up in. Okay, and again, older generation, it goes the same way. Older generation who are more rooted may not be able to adapt to the increasingly global and popular based, okay, culture that we have today, right? And so that is actually what we term as homogenization. Okay, when something of a stronger force, so in this case a stronger culture, starts to take over a smaller, weaker local culture entirely, that is what we call homogenization. However, there's a case where we call hybridization, which is when local cultures actually adopt some of the influences from foreign cultures and they start to form something new. This is a hybrid, right? It's a hybrid of the local culture and the foreign culture. They come together, they actually form something new. They reflects both the global culture but also remains somewhat related to the original culture that was present. Okay, and that's what we call hybridization. So a good example is in Japan. I don't know if you know, but Christmas time, Japanese people actually consume KFC, right, as their tradition. So while the rest of the world might be eating ham and whatnot, or some of the world doesn't celebrate Christmas, okay, Japan is eating KFC, and of course KFC is something that comes from America. This tradition, okay, the Japanese people saw the American people in Japan, okay, having no other option, they actually went to eat KFC for Christmas. And slowly, the Japanese people caught on, and now it has become a tradition for them at Christmas time. Okay, same thing. This is in Kiev, okay, Ukraine. Ukraine was one of the countries that actually celebrated Christmas in January, okay, because they follow, I think, the Orthodox calendar or the Orthodox way of things. Okay, but after the Russian, I combined the two countries together. Sorry, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Okay, they actually have shifted their Christmas to December 25th, which is the more global one, okay, to be more distinct from Russia. Okay, so we've talked about what is the positive, what is the negative or cultural impact. Now let's talk about how people and countries are responding to it. Governments. Okay, governments in particular, they have a very different degree of accepting and rejecting cultural globalization. Some people take it to the extreme, they will ban foreign influences. Others, they might just fully accept foreign influences. So our friend has come back, France. Okay, we have studied their acculturation policy of assimilation, but you actually start to realize that it doesn't apply just to that. It also applies to the way that they protect their culture. Okay, so France actually requires at least 40% of television programs to be French. 40% of the songs played over the radio must be French. Okay, and these are essentially things, okay, that they're trying to do to protect their own French culture in French identity, okay, from the increasingly Eurocentric or English-centric kind of media that's being consumed around the world. Yeah, so okay, some people were not very happy for that. Okay, sometimes the radio stations were actually competing with your global streaming services like Spotify, who offered English music lah. Okay, so it was lowered. Okay, so again, these responses are not perfect by any means. Okay, they have their flaws, but they also have their benefits as well, and that is something you must be acutely aware of whenever you are discussing things like this lah. Okay, another one is China. China also limits the import of foreign films. Okay, so foreign films can only be distributed through state-owned businesses. So what that means is that the box office, right? We always say box office. When a movie earns, say, this amount of money, okay, by broadcasting their movie in China, a huge portion of it actually goes to the cinema, and a smaller cut actually goes back to the people that made the movie. Okay, so that's why a lot of foreign companies choose not to show their films in China. And so that has resulted in China having a majority of the movies you can watch in China actually locally produced lah. Okay, and the box office revenue, only about 15% are actually from foreign films. Yeah, so what is the understanding here? Some countries may choose to ban, okay, foreign culture from coming in because they want to protect the way that they live, so their culture, their values, their beliefs, and also perhaps to protect their own economy. Okay, so there's two ways to think about it. Okay, one is to protect our own identity, so we don't want to adopt somebody else's identity, right? That would be, essentially losing what it means to be French or Chinese or Singaporean or whatever. Okay, at the same time, we also need to protect our own industries from perhaps the more competitive industries overseas. Okay, and again, these are all empowered by globalization. Now, this is nothing new. Okay, in Singapore we also do this. Okay, but Singapore focuses more on whether or not it will actually destroy the moral values that we have as a country. So, for example, in 2019, okay, this Swedish concert band, Watain, I don't know how to pronounce it lah. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, but they were actually meant to perform in Singapore, but IMD actually banned their performance on the grounds of them promoting violence and sentiments that are hateful and religiously offensive. Okay, and so the government saw it as their responsibility to censor their content and ban them from coming to Singapore to play, okay, because they needed to protect Singaporeans and our national values. Yeah, okay. So you I think by now you're very familiar with this rating that we have, right? The PG, NC-16, M18 kind of thing. Yes, this is also a form of censorship. This is a form of also limiting, okay, the kind of values and things that you consume that might change the way you view the world. Okay, so you can read about how these ratings are actually given lah. Okay, but yes, as you can see, the classification and the censorship is to do with protecting people from unsuitable content, to sensitive to national interests like race, religion, this kind of thing, and also to basically protect the Singaporean community values. Things like your what we recognize as family lah, what we recognize as love, okay, and harmony, all these values, okay, the government is trying to essentially censor and open up at the same time, okay, things that you can see, things that you cannot see, simply on the basis that we do not want these foreign cultures or these foreign values to actually change the way that Singaporeans live and think. Individuals, okay, individuals also have a certain level of autonomy and agency in this. Okay, sometimes, okay, foreigners might choose to consume foreign cultural products and they openly embrace the ideas, values, and beliefs. Okay, sometimes, okay, individuals' choices can also be influenced by this. For example, activism is a very common one. Okay, there have been many cases where feature films on documentaries on certain issues have uh, raised people's awareness and also willingness to support these causes all across the world. Okay, and indeed, whether it's a good thing or bad thing, you can make your own decision on that. Okay, but nonetheless, it does exist, it is happening, and this is up to the individual's agency as well. Okay, consumers might also embrace the spread of cultural products so that they can, feel different products, different lifestyle choices from all around the world. And sometimes you might say that you accept what these people think. Okay, you might not agree with what your society tells you, and rather you associate more with this value or this virtue that is present in another society. That's what globalization has empowered you to do. Okay, but on the other hand, there are also individuals that choose to resist. Okay, individuals that believe that foreign influences are quote unquote evil and they're trying to replace the local culture. That also exists as well. Okay, so like I said, double-edged sword always. So I'm gonna end off today's lecture here, okay, with this simple quote: "A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." Okay, and this is something that is off note here in Singapore. It's because we see culture in a very, very liberal kind of way. Okay, we not only see culture as in our traditional cultures, but also we are come to accept global culture as our own as well. Okay, some of you might see this topic as a very easy hi bye kind of topic. Yes, it is truly, but at the end of the day, it actually represents a problem that is not immediately obvious. It's not immediately problematic, unlike economy and also the next one, which is security impacts. Okay, but it is still at the foundation of it. Culture shapes who we are, what our communities believe in, and so if we leave it unchecked, whether it's a positive impact or negative impact, if we leave it unchecked, we are taking away the agency from our own culture and our own beliefs. Okay, and that's why we always focus on protecting our culture, okay, and also recognizing the importance of culture. Okay, and that's why this whole topic has been introduced to all of you guys. Okay, everybody who comes to secondary school must take this topic one way or another. Okay, so yeah, that is it for this topic. So again, recap: two stakeholders in this issue, government and individuals, like always. Okay, and then of course positive and negative impact of cultural globalization. and of course how the two stakeholders respond to it. Simple. Okay, the next lecture, we'll be talking about the final topic, which is security impact. Okay, and we're going to be discussing terrorism and also cybersecurity issues. Okay, so once again, keep on going strong. We're all here for you. All right, keep studying. Okay, keep working at it. You're almost there. Okay, all the best, everyone. All right, and I'll see you guys in our next and final lecture. All right, bye bye.